you're a great person to speak to because you actually are exposed to the real economy, and you have three very distinct parts in your business, which is automobile, publishing, and healthcare. Which of these three businesses is doing better?
I would say that probably the healthcare business is the one that is doing better right now. It is basically leveraging on a structural change which is taking place with the aging of the Italian population, which is quite a certainty despite what could happen to the economy. And so we have created this company about 12 years ago, and we've been really riding that growth in the market. It's a consolidation play in a very fragmented market that we still have in Italy. So that business is doing fairly well. The automotive business has done pretty well in terms of top line last year. The global automotive production was good. Pickup in Europe, very strong in the US, very weak in Latin America, and continued strength in Asia. And the media business is really a cost-cutting type of play, because unfortunately the headwind there are against us in terms of the changing way in which people use media. But we've managed to continue to generate good results and strong cash flow, so we are reasonably happy.
The car parts business is probably the one that's most exposed internationally. So you were mentioning weakness there in Latin America. What do you make of the current market turmoil that we see in China, that we see in a lot of these emerging market economies? Are you less confident about the strength of the world economy than you were 12 months ago?
Well, I think that there are a lot of uncertainties today in the world economy. I think there are a lot of countries, you mentioned Brazil, which are really going through a really rough time. Brazil in the last 2 years have had a dreadful performance, and expectations for this year are not much better. I think a lot of attention is given today to the slowdown in China.
Too much attention?
Maybe. To me, 6.9% GDP growth is not too bad. And if you think of the size of the Chinese economy today, 6.9% today equals to probably 12 or 13% 5 years ago in terms of the real number, the real growth that is created every year. So I think it's not too bad of a performance. But there is a lot of anxiety about that, and about how reliable those numbers are, and whether that hides a slowdown. But for the time being, hard data don't really show it.
Do you believe that the Italian economy has put in the structural reforms needed? 12 months ago, we were talking about possible Grexit, Greece exiting the Eurozone. Now we worry about Brexit, we worry about Finland and the refugee crisis. But it feels like it's a better place, and yet there's underlying concerns.
I think Italy has done a lot in the last 18 months. I think Prime Minister Renzi really kick-started a season of reforms that we've been talking for the last 20 years, and nobody ever started to address them. So I think some important things were done: labor law reform, constitutional reform, and so I think we're seeing the beginning of some signs of a better economy. Our economic performance in Italy has been really very, very weak over the last 5 or 6 years. And in the last few quarters, for the first time, we've seen a reversal. It's very mild for the time being. It's timid, but at least it's a change in sign. I think more has to be done. And sometimes, one would like the government to be more daring and more courageous in those reforms, because we're not done yet. And we have a very high debt to GDP ratio. We have still a number of structural issues that need to be addressed, and I hope that the government will be strong enough to go full steam ahead and be very daring to face those issues.
Rodolfo De Benedetti, there's also press speculation that your CEO has been approached to run Generali when the CEO left to another insurance company. Have you talked to her about it?
Obviously. Let me put it this way. I think, I've been working with Monica Mondardini for the last 8 years. She has done a terrific job at L'Espresso first and at CIR in the last 2 years since she's been appointed CEO of the group. I have an enormous respect for her. I have a great relationship with her, and I really hope that she will decide staying with us. The fact that a company like Generali, which is the largest financial services company in Italy and one of the largest in Europe, think of her as a possible CEO is I think, a testament to her qualities and to her strength, and so we're pleased as a company to have such an outstanding manager.
It is. I mean, it's a great testament to what she's achieved so far. Give me a sense, you also opened Decalia, which is an asset manager for small and medium-sized companies. What's the attractiveness there? Because when you speak to big banking CEOs, they're not lending possibly as much as they should because of regulation concern.
We have started with a very good friend of mine, my partner Alfredo Piacentini Decalia, about 18 months ago. We're an asset management company based in Geneva. We run about 1.2 billion Swiss francs today, and we believe that there is really an opportunity today in the asset management sector, to the extent that you try to focus on themes in which you believe, and then create out of those themes and on those themes investment products that could be appealing to the market. And one of the big themes in which we believe, or actually two big themes, are one, the process of disintermediation of credit in Europe. In Europe, as you know, in most countries, close to 90% of lending to SMEs goes through the banking system. This number is much lower in the US, for example.
And in the UK.
And in the UK. Now, we're not going to become the US or the UK overnight, but I think the trend is that also because of capital constraints that banks are working under, they are retrenching from lending to that sector of the economy. And I think that there is an opportunity for alternative lenders, non-banking lenders, to really deploy assets in that asset class. And this, I come to the second theme, which is the quest for yield. With very low interest rates that we have had for a long time, and that presumably will have for quite some time, in my opinion, investors are desperately looking for yield, and they don't find it anymore easily in liquid instruments, government bonds or corporate bonds. And so I think their willingness to deploy capital on assets that offer a very attractive risk-return profile, is there. And so we've teamed up with a very talented team here in London, the Three Hills Capital, and we have launched 9 months ago their second fund.
And how do you identify the companies that you want to be part of? Is it sector? Is it does it depend also on who's running them, or is it country specific?
This is like private equity investing in debt,
right,
as opposed to in equity, and so it's really a matter of picking the right companies, which is a mix of criteria. The sector, management, historic performance, credibility of a business plan. And what we are providing through the fund is really development capital to those companies that are interested in growing their business, where there is an entrepreneur that believes in the company. And we are providing that medium-term capital in lieu of banks or other sources of capital, in a way which is flexible for the company. So I think we're an appealing source of capital for companies. And at the same time, we believe that we are creating an asset class which is attractive to investors because of the risk-reward profile.